Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you yet, though.
Huh, I unmuted
I
it.
can't hear you at all, but that's
That's now because I'm not
no.
muted. All right, let me try this again. That's now. Can you hear me?
Not yet.
That is so.
You have to turn, maybe look at your control screen
Yeah,
and look, do you see the mute button?
yeah, and that's what I
So
see
can you
green.
click on that?
I clicked on it
Oh, you did that? All right.
and it's flashing green.
Let me see if I make you co-host again.
Because
It doesn't show you muted on my side, so.
No. Let me, no, I'm just making sure my volume, everything.
So I made you a co-host. Maybe that'll make a difference.
Okay, I hope so.
Can't hear you at all, though.
No, you
Now,
can't.
is there a phone number? If you go back to the original invite,
Yeah.
I think there's a dial-in phone number.
Okay.
Yes, to join by phone. Do you see it there? You want the New York phone number, 646-558-8656.
Okay, let me get to it.
See that?
Okay, yes. So joining by phone. All right. 646. Let me.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Now you can.
Now I can, yes. It was
Okay,
probably my fault. It was probably my fault.
Oh, okay. Then I'm going to get out of the dialing. Okay.
Okay, good.
Good. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. And now, so I should do let me get back into Zoom.
Yeah. Well, and put your PowerPoint, there in the background, have it open.
Yep. Let me do that. Let me just, okay. Well, I'm glad this didn't happen the first time.
Well, you know what? I'm working from home today, and so that makes
okay.
That's why I'm thinking it was probably my fault, because I got a warning saying some of your features were disabled because I'm not inside the network at Kingsway. So that's that's why I'm thinking it was me.
Okay, so, but wait a second. I see my PowerPoint and I see you.
Right, and I have to share. So what you're going to do is once you just make sure it's open on your screen.
Yeah.
And you see that share screen button on the lower half of the window.
Okay, let me go back. I don't know why I just lost my window. Let me get out of that a second. All right, Zoom. I wonder if I have to go back into Zoom because, but I see, okay, there I go. All right.
You have mute, stop video.
Yep, and now I see share. So I'm going to hit share screen.
You could do that now, or you could wait until, hey, Darlene, it's Sharon. I just want to let you know you're no longer in the queue here, so I don't know what you're doing. The Zoom session? You're no longer in the queue for the Zoom session, so you're going to have to relaunch it. You have to click on that email again, okay? And all righty, thanks. Bye. All right.
Zoom is stressful.
It is stressful. So after I say welcome, then and you say thanks everybody for coming, you can hit your share screen and then your PowerPoint,
Well, okay,
and then change it to the slide mode so you can click it forward, you know? You'll
right.
see. You'll see.
Okay.
How.
Yes, we did it last
Right.
time.
Yeah, right now it's just you and me. And I was a little concerned because that's why I made that phone call, was that Cheryl, one of my colleagues, Darlene, has a group of her residents who wanted to join in. And she joined the Zoom session 45 minutes ago. I called her up. I said, you know, it's not start. I won't let you in until 10:25. And so now she's not in the queue. Can you see the participants list? You see it?
Okay. I just see, all right, to get to that list.
You don't, do you see
Oh.
the participants too?
Um,
Two participants.
all right, why? Gallery view, is that, should I hit that?
Try
What
it. See what you get.
if I hit gallery view?
Yeah.
No. Oh, participants. Let me see. Yeah, I see two participants.
Yeah,
You
so
and me.
that's just you and me. So,
Right.
And so that's why we're waiting for other people to join. You can sort of see them queuing up. I let them in, but and actually as a co-host, you can let them in too. So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
All righty.
I
I
like
know
your
Donna was
persistence.
going to join, so.
Well, I see a resident 4 entered the waiting room.
Yes, there we go. That's Darlene. There we go.
Okay.
Hi, Darlene. Can you hear us? Well, she's working on it.
Okay.
She probably has the volume down. Hi, Darlene. Let us know when you can hear us. Not yet? Hi.
I know.
Can you hear me, Darlene? No, I guess not. Maybe should I call her? Hi, darling. So I want to let you know you're on. We can see you, but can you see us? Okay, that's fine. But you can't hear me speaking through the TV. Is it a TV monitor you're using? Yeah. Well, can you hear me speaking right now through the TV or only through your phone? Oh, all right. So maybe the audio's turned down on the TV itself? Yeah, yeah. As long as you can see us, we can see that you've turned off the camera on your computer. So now you're only showing up as KWA resident 4. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's just that I just want to make sure you could hear the audio. That was all. Because when Cheryl talks, you're going to want to hear her. That's all. Okay. Oh, it's all right. So you got your camera off, but you have no audio yet. I can see that you don't have any audio. Who was it that helped you? Was it Nick? Oh yeah. He's oh so helpful. Can you still, the question is, can you still see Cheryl or myself on the TV screen? No. Oh, okay. So it's really, you're still logged in as far as I can tell. Well, I'm gonna hang up and let you work it out, okay? You might have to call Nick. Okay, bye. Good morning. Thanks for joining. It's good to see you. We're just waiting for a few more people to come along and then we'll start in a bit. This is the third and final session, so I really appreciate that you've been here with us throughout.
We're just having a cup of coffee, so we are not putting the video on until we finished eating.
Very polite.
It will only
Very polite. Thank you.
Only take a couple of minutes, so, okay?
Take your time. You don't have, you can leave the camera off if you're more comfortable with that.
No,
because-
we are not, but for right now, we just,
Okay.
while we're chewing. My husband is very anxious for this meeting because last time you mentioned that we should do charity work, which I do, and to eliminate stress, but he's not, that's not for him. So he's anxious to hear what else there is to say.
Okay. You're probably doing a lot of it.
With charity work comes responsibility, and I'm one of those introverts too.
Okay, so that can be more stressful. Yes.
It's more stressful when I have to, when I'm obliged to be somewhere at a certain time to do something.
Yeah.
It's a stress increaser, so I need other ways to reduce.
Oh, there are lots of other ways, and you're probably already doing some of them.
Yeah.
But you will now know that they are evidence-based.
Yeah. Well, now we finished chewing, so now we'll get.
Okay. Okay, you're back.
We're back, yeah.
We were here all the time.
But I do a lot of Zooming with the different organizations, and I really think it's not very polite when people are sitting there eating their dinner and, doing. So I don't want to be in that category myself. A cup of coffee, I think, is okay. Don't you think so?
Yes.
Yes, I think so.
Definitely. Definitely. And it's good for your brain, remember. Coffee's good for your brain.
It is.
That's
good.
We drink a lot of it. We try to limit or cut it down, but that's our drink. We are not alcohol drinkers, but we do love our Starbucks coffee.
I am the same way, and it's got to be strong, which is why I like Starbucks. Yes. Strong and black. That's how I like it.
Strong and black, that's true.
When I would go on vacation, my main thing was I would look up where the closest Starbucks was to the hotel I was staying. That was the important stuff.
We took a couple of driving trips across country. We have a son in Oregon, and twice we drove there. And out west, the coffee is terrible. So we were glad we could find Starbucks on the GPS. We drove miles sometimes just to get a cup of coffee.
Our priorities.
Well, the West Coast is okay, but it's between Washington and Oregon.
Right.
Chicago is the problem.
Starbucks is from like Seattle, right?
Yes, it is.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now I bring my own, if I go someplace, I bring my own little coffee maker just in case they don't have it right away.
So do we, and we bring the coffee, beans too. So
okay. Oh, good. I have found other people just like me. I bought a Nespresso machine, which is interesting because you can do all different kinds. And it's good. And that's portable too.
We have a big espresso machine sitting in front of us, but it gets our water is so full of calcium that it gets blocked in any time.
Okay.
And it costs $25 every time we have to clean it. And
Go to
So
Starbucks.
we only use it when we have people who want certain type of coffee.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
Well, it's 10:31 now, huh?
Are we the
Yes,
only
it
ones?
is. Just waiting for one more party. Give them one more minute to see if they can get in.
Sure.
Because they were having trouble with their audio and they might get it resolved. And they're sending me text messages as we speak. So hopefully they'll get that fixed.
That's good.
Yeah,
We should wait for them.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. All right. Well, that was the extra minute. We will start ahead and hopefully they'll get that resolved. So good morning, everybody. I'm Sharon Sleitcher. I'm from Kingsway Community, and this is the third and final Brain Health Tuesday session with Sheryl Kaplan. Thank you so much, Sheryl, for being with
You're
us
welcome.
today. And excited to jump right into the topic. I just want to remind everybody that we'll send out the slides, we'll send out a resource sheet, and Katie George from Kingsway Community will make sure you get that. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to Katie or Sheryl, and that information will be provided at the end of the session. So thank you very much, Sheryl. I'll let you take that away.
Okay. So I need to go to share screen
Right?
and click on, whoops.
There you go.
Okay. But I don't know. All right. We're in the middle. I'm giving you a little bit of a backwards look at what we're going to be talking about. Stress proof your brain. And in case people were not stressed, that's why we use Zoom, because that creates enough stress, I think, trying to figure out how to use it. And the previous two workshops, we've talked about ways to take care of your brain, strategies. And what you're going to find is a lot of those same strategies are also good ways to be dealing with stress. So first of all, we always hear people talking about stress, but what is stress? And it could be different for everyone you talk to, but a definition they use is your mind and body's response or reaction to a real or imagined threat, event, or change. And I think that's so important because people may be stressed about something that they think might happen, or they're worrying about what may happen in the future. And it doesn't matter that it doesn't happen. Your body doesn't know that. So you still will have the reaction as if it's going to happen or if it's happening, which is why we realize we spend so much time worrying about things often that don't happen. All right, so let's go to the next. Uh-oh, why is mine? There we go. So we do know that stress starts young, and even little kids can be stressed. And I think because of that, more and more schools are beginning to teach kids early on how to deal with stress, even preschool kids. And this little kid is saying, no, Grandma, listen, double click the Internet Explorer icon. And it's amazing how the youngest kids seem to know how to use computers. Or I remember when I first had a VCR, I always had to get my nieces and nephews to show me how to use it. So what we call stressors are the actual event or the threat or changes that will cause us stress, and they can be internal or external. And that is why obviously things happening out in the real world can be very stressful, of what we're going through right now with the pandemic, with the economy, but also just our thoughts can often cause stress. But the positive thing about that is there are certain things we cannot change on the, that are external, but we can change how we think about them, which gives us a little bit more control. So I love, there's some quotes about stress. And this was Hans, he was a person, he first started writing a lot about stress. It's not stress that kills us, it's our reaction to it. And stress, in addition to being itself, was also the cause of itself and the result of itself. Adopting the right attitude can convert a negative stress into a positive one. And this is what Winston Churchill said: "When I look back on all those worries, I remember the story of the old man who said on his deathbed that he had had a lot of trouble in his life, most of which had never happened." And I think that kind of says it all, that we spend so much time worrying about things that don't happen. So, important things to remember: stress is a normal part of everyday life. Everyone has it. It is your body's, it's a natural reaction to danger or a perceived threat. And they talk about the fight or flight response. If you think you're in danger, that your body, you go into this, you're gonna fight or try to run away. Or they also talk about the freeze response that they say is sometimes what, and they learned a lot of this from watching animals. And sometimes an animal will just freeze. And almost when they talk about playing possum, playing dead, that can be a way that people deal with stress. But it's a natural reaction to changes in life. And what is really important is not what is causing the stress, it's how you react to it. And once again, that's something we do have control of. And stress can be positive and negative, because we're usually always using it in a negative way. But when I don't know why I'm having some problems switching, but the two types of stress, there's even a word for positive stress. It's called eustress, and that's stress that's healthy. And it kind of is the stress that makes us do things. Whereas the other stress that is what we are usually thinking about is that negative stress or distress. And that can result from so many different things. But what they have found is that distress or chronic distress, it actually has so many negative effects on your body, your brain, your mind. It affects us in so many ways. And that's what we're going to talk about a little. All right. I don't know what is going on with my computer today, but it's just trying to stress me out a little. Let me see if I can. There we go. So negative stress, they say, is the #1 killer in America. And this is actually old data. I have a feeling if they did surveys today with everything going on, it would be way more than this. But they said that 19 million Americans currently suffer from stress and anxiety disorders. And that includes people of all ages, including children. And a lot of, when they've did surveys, 7 in 10 Americans reported that they experience physical or non-physical symptoms of stress. And you hear more and more about in hospitals or with doctors, so many of the problems that they're seeing, the medical issues, whether it be physical medical issues, cardiovascular, or mental health issues, are a result of stress. And I think in our culture, we've always kind of separated mind and body. And what we are beginning to really realize is how you are thinking, your emotions, your mental health affect your body physically. All right, let's see if there is another way I can switch these slides, because this is not, It's funny, this did not happen last time. So, oh well. It's gonna keep me stressed, because one thing they also say about stress is a little bit of stress is good for you. It makes you kind of on alert. So this will maybe help me a little bit. But when you think of negative stressors, these are just the things that would be considered negative: injury, illness, the loss of someone in your family, legal problems, money problems, conflict in interpersonal relationships. And then when we think about, all right, there's got it. Whoops, that did not work. Let me go back. Huh. Okay. For some reason, I got out of my slideshow, and I am going to try to get back into it. I'm glad this is our last one, and I'm glad this is a PowerPoint on stress, because it definitely, slideshow, play from current.
Don't get stressed, we're fine.
Okay, now we have it. So the positive stressors, which can be things like vacations, holidays, and I think especially this time of year, with Thanksgiving, with different holidays, people look at them as times that are supposed to be joyous and wonderful, but they can cause so much stress. And suddenly, I think being with family or worrying about, oh no, I need to have an event or not have an event, buying a home, starting a new job, all of these can be considered stressors, but they are positive stressors. I am going to see if I can get to a slide in a different way. Got it. So when they talk about a negative stress cycle, what kind of happens? And a lot of times we don't even realize we're doing it. Something happens that we would consider stressful, and then you have an automatic thought. Sometimes you're not even conscious of, and then that thought might lead you to feel negative, then have a negative feeling or mood, which then can relate and cause negative physical symptoms and behaviors, which then makes you more stressed. So it becomes this cycle that so often, if people are worried about something and then they end up, and we don't even realize sometimes we're when we talked a little bit about positive self-talk and negative self-talk, when you are saying something, even if you see somebody looking at you and your automatic thought might be, oh no, what's wrong? Why are they looking at me? Is it dangerous? And then you're gonna probably feel fear and anger and just very anxious, which then is gonna lead to physical problems, which could be, for some people, their heart will beat faster, they may have a headache or whatever. And then that's going to cause you to feel even more stressed. So you realize how much, where you really need to prevent stress is right away. When you see somebody looking at you, somebody else might think, wow, that person's looking at me. I wonder, they must like my new coat that I'm wearing. And then that's going to make you feel good. And you're not going to have those negative symptoms. So you realize we kind of like get ourselves into these, we ruminate about things. And sometimes it's our own thinking that can make things worse. And we do know that, as I said, stress is so much more than just effects on the body. And I know it can affect people differently physically, but often people may get headaches, may get very tired, may find that they feel breathless, but it also can affect your mind. And we'll go through all of these a little bit more. Worrying, suddenly being very negative, it can affect people's behavior, because a lot of times people's way of dealing with stress, often it can be things, it's almost like people self-medicate. They will do something that makes them feel better. But unfortunately, a lot of times those things may be negative, whether it be drinking, or maybe eating more, or smoking cigarettes more. And emotions. When people are under too much stress, often they will start to be really irritable. They get angry much easier. They may get depressed. They may withdraw from people. So just knowing that stress can lead to so many different things. And once again, as I had mentioned, we're talking about higher levels of stress because, as I said, we all have some stressful things happen every day, but it's when we have stress that we don't resolve in some way that it can start to have psychological, physiological, and behavioral symptoms. And some of the physical problems that they really have seen connected with stress may have to do with the stomach. And they talk about that they actually call your gut your second brain because there are neurons, brain cells actually that in your gut, in your stomach. And what they have found is when people are worrying a lot or people who are under stress, often those symptoms may come out with gastric or digestive problems. And and even the term when they talk about butterflies in the stomach, when people get nervous, often they will feel it there. So many stress related problems can cause stomach issues for people. They also talk about increased blood pressure, that when people are stressed, their heart is beating faster, the blood is pumping, so it can cause those kinds of problems, increased blood sugar, and inflammation in all parts of your body. So we do know that being stressed definitely can have physical effects. And I had mentioned digestive problems, changes in appetite. There are some people when they're stressed, they can't eat. They lose their appetite. There are other people when they're stressed, they can't stop eating. They just want to eat. And usually the foods that people want to eat are those comfort foods or sugar, high carbohydrates, because they may make you feel better, but just very temporarily. Headaches, frequent colds, because what they have also found is that when people are under a lot of stress, their immune system is much weaker. And that's why it's so important in, the seasons of when with the flu or with what is going on, with COVID, that people find ways to really try to take care of themselves so that doesn't happen. Short-term symptoms may be your heart is beating faster. You start to maybe have problems breathing, increased sweating, cold hands and feet. And that's because when you are under stress, your body goes into this like protection mode. So all of the blood and oxygen goes to the organs that are going to help you to escape or deal with the stress. So it's not going to your hands and feet, which is why often people can suddenly find that they're feeling really cold, butterflies in the stomach. And what's interesting, I have known many people, adults, but also when I worked in high schools, where kids would actually think they were having a heart attack. Or I knew someone who was an adult, he would go from emergency to emergency room because he thought he was having a heart attack. And it turned out it was a panic attack. It was anxiety attacks. Because sometimes when people are very anxious, because it comes out in ways that are, faster heartbeat or problems breathing, people will start to think, oh my God, this is, there's something really serious. I'm gonna die. So when anxiety is not, when people are not finding ways to deal with it in healthy ways, it can lead to anxiety attacks or panic attacks, where your body will go into these kinds of processes without there really being a reason. And we also know when people are stressed, they're not thinking in this, you know, in the same way. They might have trouble concentrating. They lose their self-confidence. But I think this lapses of memory is so important because especially when people are getting older and maybe you can't remember somebody's name, so you start worrying, oh no, what's wrong with me? Oh no, I'm losing, you know, I'm having problems with my memory. Do I have dementia? That gets you more stressed, which then causes you to have more problems with your memory. So it just can become this cycle because when people are feeling pressured or worried about something, you can't think straight. You really are, your brain is not working in a way that you can, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Also, changes in emotion. You may not realize that somebody who you're noticing is always seems irritable and angry, or you know, seems to be very moody or very depressed. Sometimes it can be related to them feeling stressed. And I think it's important to remember different people will show their stress in different ways. Too much stress can result in mental health issues. And we talked about, you know, anxiety disorders, but they also now know that relationship problems, depression, eating disorders, substance abuse, sleep problems, those can all be related to stress. And so finding ways to deal with the stress is going to have a positive impact on all of these different things. And some of the behavioral changes that you may notice in yourself or with someone else are things like if you are someone who normally maybe, you know, likes to have a glass of wine with dinner, but suddenly you're finding you need a drink as soon as you get home because you've had a bad day, or smoking cigarettes. I know for a lot of people, that is what they do when they're stressed. And the nicotine actually does help calm them down, but unfortunately, it's addictive. So it becomes something they may turn to more. Also, having like a lack of interest in things that normally would interest you, that can sometimes be related to the fact that you're feeling anxious, that it's hard to have the even your mind is not able to really think about positive things. Some people, when they are stressed, they have a frantic increase in normal activity. And I don't know if you've know people that when they're stressed, they can't stop talking or they talk really fast. Other people just really withdraw. And people have some different nervous habits, that from nail biting to hair pulling, that you may find when you're more stressed out. But the reason that so much of this happens, and it has to do with how stress affects the brain. And, you know, we talked about when somebody perceives a threat, not that it is even actually there, but when you start thinking about it, your body automatically, what they call the stress response is activated. So you go into that fight, flight, or freeze to protect yourself. But what happens is the part of the brain that has to do with thinking, what they call executive function, memory, thinking rationally, having impulse control, that takes a back seat. That's not needed. What's needed at the time, your body needs to be ready to escape that threat. And those lower, more primitive parts of the brain that were the first to develop, the brain stem, those become activated. And that's where it causes adrenaline and cortisol to be released. And we need that. And a little bit of that can be good if you see a car coming towards you, to jump out of the way, or you hear stories even of, you know, a mother her child got stuck under a heavy piece of furniture and somehow was able to lift it. You hear stories that seem incredible, but I think what happens when you are in certain states, there's so much adrenaline and cortisol released that you have stronger muscle strength than you normally would. And when you're in that fight, flight, or freeze response, safety is your number one priority. You're not thinking of anything else but how to be safe. You're not open to having a rational communication or problem solving with someone. So the time to talk to somebody is not when they're angry. And I think, especially with children, and so often in school, you see when a child is doing something, somebody will, a teacher will yell at and try to explain to the child why that's the wrong thing to do. That's not the time to do it. You need time to get back into a state where that part of the brain is going to be working. And what they say, before doing anything else, you must be physically calmed down. So if you have something going on that you're really nervous about or anxious about, or if you're angry, that is not the time to probably try to talk to the person you're upset with, but try to find ways to calm down and get yourself out of that fight, flight, or freeze position. Okay. What we do know is stress actually decreases the size of the brain, and it shrinks the part of the brain, and we mentioned it before, is the hippocampus. And that is the part of the brain which is the most critical for forming memories and for learning. And unfortunately, that is one of the first areas that when people are aging and with a lot of cognitive issues, the hippocampus will start to shrink. But if people remember, the good thing is, and we're going to talk about, they now know that you can grow new brain cells. And one of the areas where you grow them is in the hippocampus. And they have actually, because what they have found when there's chronic stress, it increases the levels of cortisol. And that cortisol, too much cortisol, will interfere with memory and cognitive skills in all ages. And they have done studies, even with children who they were growing up in, very dangerous, high risk neighborhoods. They found when they went to school, they were having more difficulty learning. And a lot of it was because they were under so much chronic stress. There were high levels of cortisol. So the hippocampus was actually smaller when they did brain imaging. But the positive thing is that they're able to do interventions to help kids grow new brain neurons and have more connections. And those interventions can also be used with people of all different ages. And I think I might have mentioned, but I'm going to mention again, it's really good to understand what's going on when you get upset or anxious or angry. And they have we would teach kids, young kids, about what's going on. And it's called the amygdala hijack, that the part of your brain that has to do with what they call your limbic system or with your emotions, that kind of hijacks your whole brain. It takes over. So you can't be thinking rationally. And I had watched a videotape of a school where they were using a program where they were teaching even kids in preschool, 3 and 4 years old, about their brains and what happens when they get angry or upset. And this little 4-year-old had gotten in a fight on the playground. And when she came in and the teacher asked what happened, she said, "My brain got hijacked by my amygdala." So even little kids can understand that, okay, when this happens, this is going on. So what can I do to calm that part of my brain down? And it turns out, and we'll talk a little bit about what we call mindfulness, which is really just focused attention. A lot of times that became the word that all you would hear about is mindfulness, and let's do mindfulness training and mindfulness. And a lot of times I think people thought mindfulness, we're going to talk about what it is, but it meant that you had to start meditating or do yoga or do all, go to India or no. Mindfulness just means finding a way to focus your attention so you're in the here and now. And if you can relax your body, then your mind is going to become relaxed, because your body can't be tense and relaxed at the same time. So sometimes you may, saying, I need to relax, doesn't work. In fact, usually that makes you more stressed. So what are things that can help to relax your mind and body? And that's what we're going to talk about. And you may recognize that some of these things were what we talked about in ways to take care of your brain. And stress management techniques, it's ways, it's changing how you think, it's changing what you do, but it also may be changing your lifestyle. And some of the different strategies for dealing with stress, and you may already do some of them, and we'll talk about all of them, but the ones that I talked about in the previous sessions, I won't go into detail. But the good thing is, every time you repeat something, it becomes easier to remember it. So the fact that we're going to talk about some things again will help. So exercise. We talked about how that is so good for growing new brain neurons. And if you remember, we talked about how exercise, you produce something called, well, they call it miracle grow for the brain. It's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. And that actually helps you to grow new brain cells, which is why they call it brain miracle grow. Well, exercise does that, but they've also found exercise can be one of the best things for can blunt the stress response for a full day. So maybe exercising in the morning, that's going to help you later in the day to maybe be able to deal with things in better ways. And what they also say, that most forms of exercise will help to mitigate stress, but the more pleasurable or absorbing it is for you, the stronger the effect. So maybe, someone that they love to run or they love to skateboard. That may not be something you love to do. So, I think it's important to find what it is that you enjoy doing, because chances are you're gonna probably do it more and more consistently if it's something you like. But it also, they're finding that if it's pleasurable, or if you're so absorbed in it, it's helping you deal with stress even better. And they know that exercise also pumps out endorphins, which are chemicals in your body that actually help you to feel good. Serotonin, all of these things that sometimes people will take medications, but they also are realizing that exercise can help produce those chemicals. And something I was reading and I thought was very interesting, it says exercising outdoors, what they call green exercise, is even more effective at lowering stress levels and improving mood than going to a gym. Because and we're going to talk a little bit more about how nature, just being in nature, being outside, helps people to relax. And so being outside and exercising can be a wonderful thing to do. And you can even add things like doing it with people, because we know that social interaction is a very important way to alleviate stress. And the whole idea that strong relationships help diffuse stress and make life easier. So maybe going for a walk with a friend, or that can be even more helpful. But relationships, they're realizing more and more, are so important for not just physical health, but emotional health, and for keeping your brain in good condition. And I may have mentioned it in a previous workshop, but they are now saying that loneliness, especially amongst seniors, is the #1 public health problem, and that it can be as damaging to people as smoking cigarettes, and which is why in today's world with the pandemic, it's so hard because people are needing to isolate, and it's harder to find ways to interact with people. And Zoom, as good as it can be, is not the same as being in physical, space with people, but it can be helpful. So relationships are a wonderful way, and an important way to deal with stress. And it does not have to be people. There are some people that don't like people as much. Pets, they have actually done studies and found that when people are stroking their furry pets, whether it be cats, dogs, gerbils, mice, I guess they're not furry, but or birds, they actually find their stress level goes down. Not only are they producing that chemical, that oxytocin, which is, they call it the love hormone or the hugging hormone, it actually will help to decrease stress levels, the amount of cortisol that you have. And that, I think I mentioned, and I don't know if they do this at Kingsway, but having pet therapists come in, having dog therapists or whatever come into the assisted living or nursing rooms. People, I know in schools they do it. They even have done it on college campuses where they know students are stressed before an exam. So they will bring in like therapy dogs and let the students just pet them or go in a room with them. So that pets are a great stress management tool. And diet, you're going to find the same foods that we talked about being good for your brain and being good for your physical body are also ways to reduce stress. And I liked this particular thing I found because it said eating dark chocolate can lower stress level hormones. What were some of the other things? There's another one where it did say coffee, or no, maybe it didn't. Maybe I imagined it because I am such a coffee person. Coffee can be good for the brain, but obviously if you are someone dealing with a lot of anxiety, probably drinking a lot of coffee is not a good thing. But all of the same things, nuts, green vegetables, blueberries, water, vitamin C, all of these foods they have found help with dealing with stress. And I think these were another thing I had gotten a chart, which included many of the same things: nuts, avocados, complex carbohydrates, spinach, fatty fish, all those same things that you have probably seen on charts for how to improve cardiovascular health, how to improve your brain. Sleep. Now, unfortunately, sleep is something that for most people, when they are very stressed, they find it hard to sleep, or they keep waking up, or it's hard to get to sleep. Well, what they know is stress negatively affects the quality of your sleep. And unfortunately, if you don't sleep enough at night, your body produces higher levels of stress hormones, that cortisol, which is then, unfortunately, cortisol contributes to nighttime wakefulness and worries that keep your brain awake. So it becomes like a cycle that if you are not getting enough sleep, your body produces more of that chemical, more of cortisol, that then makes it harder to sleep. So somehow I think sleep hygiene, often we put it on the back burner, but that's probably one of the number one things when people are stressed and anxious, is to find healthy ways to try to sleep better. And they do say that adults really need 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. Even, they sometimes you will hear, oh, when you get older, especially when you're seniors, you don't need as much sleep. And unfortunately, that's a myth. They say it's harder to sleep because our brains are changing, so it may be harder to stay asleep, but you still may need that sleep. So that is a key thing. And in fact, I've read some things where psychologists, psychiatrists have said before they would give a diagnosis to somebody of anxiety disorder or depression, they will always ask about stress and how they're sleeping, because that can lead to a lot of symptoms. This is something that I have actually heard many people do, and what they say is to schedule a worry break so you can better deal with stress in your life. So if you are someone that finds that you worry about everything, and it's the afternoon and you're worried about your, let's say, a family member, because you knew they're doing something that you're very anxious about, what they say is not to condemn yourself and say, I shouldn't be worried. Say, okay, I'm going to put that on the list. Tonight at 7 o'clock, I will give myself 15 minutes to go through my worry list and, just all the things that worry me. And often what happens is by the time you get to 7 o'clock, those things on your list aren't bothering you anymore. So, just like they said, try to schedule a time that don't fight it. Don't fight the fact that you're worrying, but just say, okay, I will worry later on today. I will have a time that I can just go through my list and worry about each thing. And, once you have a little bit of distance from that, what's going on, you'll probably even feel better. They also talk about name it to tame it, that the process of labeling your emotions actually reduces anxiety. And we talked, I think, last time about journaling and why it is so good. Even we talked about gratitude journals, but also just to write down, I'm feeling upset, I'm not sure why. Just giving words to those emotions, actually, that part of the brain, that limbic system, the amygdala, just giving words to what you're feeling, it actually tamps it down. So you're not going to feel as stressed. And labeling what you're experiencing, it actually activates the part of the brain, that what they call the prefrontal cortex, that helps you to be able to think more rationally and detach from the anxious feelings. So they say, name it to tame it. You don't, if you want to say it to somebody else, you can, but just even saying it to yourself. Like if you notice you're jittery, whatever, just even saying, you know what, I'm anxious right now. And that can actually help you to feel better. That positive outlook, I know we talked a lot about it last week, but it's so important that just having a positive outlook reduces levels of the stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. And they have found that just being positive, the area of the brain that gets stimulated when people are meditating or being mindful, just by thinking positively and being optimistic, that can help. And the area of the brain, they've done a lot of studies with monks that from Tibet, who actually came over. The Dalai Lama sent some monks over to be actually almost like the guinea pigs, the subjects of experiments where they have found that these people had certain areas of the brain that had, they call it your anterior cingulate, are actually more active. And those are parts of the brain that have to do with empathy and parts that have to do with being able to identify your own feelings better. So doing those mindfulness kinds of things, and we'll talk about what some of those can be. I know I showed this slide before, but I'm going to show it again. Your body lives what your mind thinks. So if you are in a stressful situation, but you are able to somehow focus on positive things, your body doesn't know, I mean, your mind doesn't know that you are not in that positive place. So that is why just thinking about positive experiences when you're stressed or upset can actually help calm you down. It can trigger dopamine, that pleasure hormone, but it also can decrease cortisol levels. And some other stress management techniques, and we'll talk about them a little: mindfulness, meditation, deep breathing, yoga, visualization, and guided imagery. Now, mindfulness, once again, that kind of became the word that, you know, everybody was talking about in the past couple years. Well, it's nothing magical. All it is focusing attention on the present moment without judgment or resistance. And what they have found, so much stress and worry has to do with not being in the present. It's you're worried about what might happen, or you are stressed and upset about something that happened in the past. And what they have found, and they've actually done studies when they have taught people mindfulness, and they had them do a mindfulness class, maybe 1 or 2 hours a week for 8 weeks, they found that their brain structures, there were changed in positive ways in only 8 weeks of doing, not, you know, hiding in a cave and meditating, just doing some mindfulness techniques. So they are realizing how important it is. And mindfulness can be different things to different people. I love this cartoon because it says mindful or mindful. And we could learn so much from dogs and probably children, because they'll be outside, maybe going for a walk, thinking, oh, the sun is shining. Oh, what pretty flowers and trees. Whereas probably the adult with them is going for the walk, but thinking about, oh no, what am I going to make for dinner? Or no, I think I heard a noise in the car. So even when we're doing something that is supposed to be relaxing, we're actually, our heads are in a different place. And, you know, what another thing that they talk about when people are feeling anxious, and once again, as I said, when you're anxious, that usually has to do with the future. It's a future-oriented state of mind. So what you need to do is try to find ways to bring yourself back to the present. And somebody I knew talked about, they call it the 3-3-3 rule. And we could even try it right now if you want to try it. But what they, you know, let's say you're upset or anxious about something. So what you would do, look around you and name 3 things that you see in the room. And you could write them down, or just in your head, or you could say it to somebody you're with. Just look at 3 different things you see. Then 3 things that you hear. Just listen. What are 3 different things that you hear right now? And then move 3 parts of your body. It can just be like moving a finger, or moving your arm, or, you know, moving your leg, or your ankle. And what happens is, just doing that, it brings you into the present. And so they said, whenever you feel like your brain is racing, this rule, this little trick can help you center your mind and bring you back to the present. And sometimes we may not even realize that certain things that we do help us to come back to the present. And for some people, it may be prayer. For some people, it may be gardening. It's finding whatever it is that when you are feeling stressed and anxious will help you to just kind of shut everything out and go inside. And I love this. I always have to put in my brother's dog, but this was written by somebody who was one of the first people to really bring mindfulness and meditation into the Western culture. His name was Jack Kornfield, and he said, if you can sit quietly after difficult news, if in financial downturns you remain perfectly calm, if you can see your neighbors travel to fantastic places without a twinge of jealousy, if you can happily eat whatever is put on your plate, or if you can fall asleep after a day of running around without a drink or a pill, if you can always find contentment just where you are probably a dog. Because once again, we can learn from children and animals who are just kind of living in the moment. We kind of are born that way, and kids, will become so focused, little kids, on what they're doing. But as we get older, more and more is happening in our lives and in the world that we start to lose touch with how to be able to do that. So it's finding what does that for you. And they do know, as I mentioned, meditation, and it doesn't mean you need to be sitting down like these people. I shouldn't actually have these photos in here because you don't need to sit on the ground and cross your legs or whatever. You can be sitting in a chair. You can do it for 3 minutes. Just try to, concentrate, focus on your breath. That will, in a very short time, it helps people to calm down, but also improves awareness. And the breath and breathing. And, we all will say to people, okay, count to 10, take a deep breath, or, well, there's a reason for that. Deep breathing helps you calm down. And what they talk, when they say breathing abdominally, it means breathing in and having your stomach go out, and deep breathing will shift your body, your autonomic nervous system, from what they call your sympathetic nervous system. That's the fight, flight, or freeze. You have a parasympathetic nervous system. That's what calms you down, slows your heart rate, activates certain chemical systems that will calm you down. And what they have found is deep breaths, especially the exhale, will actually calm you down, even without trying. So really learning how to breathe. And we may not, we take our breathing for granted, but there are so often we are really not breathing, especially when you're anxious. And I know with kids in school, they would teach them deep breathing by having them with a pinwheel, blowing a pinwheel, or pretending that they are blowing out birthday candles, or singing actually can be a great thing because you automatically are breathing, so you are exhaling longer and more slowly. And that's why certain kinds of yoga will talk about the breath, but just trying to breathe. And there are a million, if you go online, type in breathing strategies, or there's also a bunch of different apps that you can get. Some are free. I have one on my Apple Watch. I don't know how it got programmed, but every once in a while, it will like do something and tell me to breathe. And it will show me like a balloon to help me breathe for only like 2 minutes, but it helps you feel better and I know I feel better when I do it. Usually I don't. Usually I'm like, oh, that, and I ignore it. But just breathing a little bit. And they also know that your breathing and heart rate are so connected. So breathing, another thing we all do. Yoga is one type of exercise that can be great for stress. Some people may not like yoga, and that's fine too. But they have found, I was at a workshop and they were selling a book, and it was called Born Yogis, and it had little babies in all the postures that they automatically did without, very easily. But what they find, yoga is so much more than just movements. It's about relaxing and breathing correctly. That can be a great thing to do to deal with stress. Other movement practices, Tai Chi, Qigong, which don't know a lot about. I know it's kind of like Tai Chi, but the movements are a little different. But even walking meditations, people, just anything that slows you down. I love, I had been someplace, it was at a church, and they had a labyrinth. And labyrinths are they're not mazes, but they're circular, and you just slowly walk around and eventually you get into the middle. But I actually created one in my garden so I would be able, to do that, because for me, gardening, being outside is relaxing. So to have a labyrinth also helps. That positive visualization, it just imagining yourself doing something that relaxes you will actually, just thinking about it will physically relax your body quickly. And often thinking about something will help you to do it. And they've done lots of, and this biofeedback was very big years and years ago. And all it was is really helping train people to be able to, using their thoughts and minds, to be able to change what was going on in their body. And positive visualization, just when you are stressed, if you have a time that you were really relaxed, if you can just picture it and try to picture yourself being there, you will feel better. Other good ways to deal with stress, and we've mentioned some of them in previous workshops, but smiling and laughter. It turns out that when you smile during times of stress, it actually decreases your cardiovascular issues. So your heart rate will go down. There is actually, in Buddhism, it's called smiling meditation. And you just go and you smile. Not that you have anything to smile about, but for some reason, what happens when your face smiles, it stimulates certain brain circuits that help your mood, but also help you decrease anxiety. And even just seeing a smile helps people to feel happier and secure. So looking at photos of people smiling will help you feel better. And repetitive smiling interrupts anxiety and mood disorders. So even if you're having a really bad day, maybe go into the bathroom, look in a mirror, and just smile. And it will help you to feel a little bit better. Laughter, we talked about last time that there's actually something called laughter yoga, and laughter, they have found, decreases cortisol levels. And I am just looking at my watch and realizing that I am kind of going over. So I'm gonna go through these next slides. We don't have a lot more, but relaxing, once again, is a great way to relieve stress. And music, we've mentioned, can be good for your brain, but it's also a great way to decrease stress hormones. Aromatherapy, smells. Your nose your sense of smell is the closest direct pathway to the brain. So smells can really influence your moods. And what they have found, certain smells, lavender, chamomile, orange, rose, are very, very good for relaxation. So if you have a diffuser, if you have a candle, those That can be very helpful. And nature, once again, being outside in nature really can help with deal with stress. And I put in coloring because it's a great way to just be in the moment. And I love, there's so many adult coloring books, and it can help you to relax. So really think about how you deal with stress and try to think of one thing you can do today when you start to feel stressed, and think about the small steps, what and when you'll do it. And there's one more very important thing about stress is it spells desserts backwards, which somebody shared that with me. And I thought, well, that's a good thing to know. So stop stressing and start living. And I know this was a lot of information as usual, but you have the PowerPoint. So anything you want, more detailed information, just email me and I will send you lots of stuff. So thank you very much.
Thank you again, Sheryl. That's really great. Does anybody have any questions at this time? Well, if you do think of a question, you have Cheryl's email right there on the screen.
Yeah.
Or you can contact Katie George. You know her here at Kingsway Community. We'll have these slides available. And I believe you have a resource sheet too, Sheryl, which is thank you for making that.
I did
help you
send
with
one.
Ideas on limiting stress. That's a good thing to have.
And I think I'm going to send you the name of another great book that I just got out of the library. It's called The Well-Gardened Mind, The Restorative Power of Nature. And it really goes into how gardening, even the color green, this bacteria in the soil, is so good for the brain and relaxing and stress, and it can even be plants. And so I'm going to send you the name of that just because I started reading it yesterday and I should have changed my resource list, but I didn't. But it's a
all right.
great
Well, I'll add it to the resource list and we'll get that out to folks. Now, next Tuesday, we're going to have another session on a new topic. It's safety in the home and beyond. It's just tips from Dan Leffingwell on how to make sure your home, your own personal space, is optimized for safety. So please join us next Tuesday, December 8th at 10:30 a.m. If you would like the link to that Zoom session, just reach out to Katie George, or you can find it on the Kingsway Community website. It's right on our homepage. All right. And that's it. Thank you so much, Sheryl. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I hope sometime in the not so distant future that I will be able to come to Kingsway physically and do some stuff. I would love that.
We would love to have you. All right, everybody.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.